Concerns over underage drinking dominated President Cyril Ramaphosa's eulogy at the mass funeral of the 21 victims of the Enyobeni tavern at the Scenery Park in East London. Thousands of mourners, including President Ramaphosa and several cabinet ministers, gathered to bid farewell to the 21 youngsters who perished at the tavern last month. Now let's discuss this further. We're now joined via Zoom by Siza Magangoe, Chief Director, Families and Social Crime Prevention at the Department of Social Development. And we're also joined by Bongi Ndondo, the Board Chairperson of the Southern African Alcohol Policy Alliance. Thank you so much to you both for joining us this afternoon. Bongi, let me start with you. This tragedy has raised a number of pertinent questions, and one of them being where the responsibility of the crisis that is underage drinking in this country, begins. Where do the answers lie, essentially?
Thank you, Nati, and good afternoon to your listeners. I think the responsibility lies with all of us, and I think the president had his finger on the pulse there, and we would like to hold him, accountable to the statements that he made. First of all, we are calling for an immediate adoption of the National Liquor Amendment Bill, which actually gives provision to change the age of drinking, the age of drinking from 18 to 21. We all know that most 18, 19-year-olds are actually still at school. So essentially, we are saying young people who are still at school are allowed to drink by keeping it at 18. But that Liquor Amendment Bill also gives room to address the issue of what is an acceptable distance between a tavern and a school, for instance. In there, we propose that we need at least 500 meters. Currently, you find drinking places, drinking outlets right next to schools. And I think that, that needs to be addressed if we want to stop with the normalization of alcohol amongst young people. The other issue that the president spoke to, which I think is very pertinent, is the issue of advertising. So we've got, alcohol being glamorized, on our television and other media outlets. And we need to address that. We need to ban alcohol advertising, especially during the time that young people are watching. In fact, just this afternoon, I learned that what used to be the PSL League, which used to be supported and sponsored by Telkom, will now be sponsored by Culling Black Label. So you can imagine that, the sports time is a time when families are watching television, and Culling Black Label is going to be, clearly all over our TV screens and given an opportunity to once again normalize alcohol in our society.
Siza, let me bring you into the conversation. While we know that the social ills of this country require multiple solutions, multiple stakeholders also to get on board. As a department, what's your role in this, particularly considering you have officials, boots on the ground, seeing the scale in which taverns are operating in communities. I mean, just this one tragedy, we already know that in some communities there are more taverns than churches, more taverns than schools. I mean, it is worrying.
Yes. Good afternoon, and good afternoon to your viewers at home and everywhere. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Indeed, this issue of alcohol is an intersectoral matter. It cannot be resolved by one department or one NGO, but rather it needs a collective with different responsibilities to ensure that at the end of the day we curb, especially the under drinking. Right now, we are proposing ±6 key strategies that can really turn things around to try and really respond and deal with the tragedy that we've just experienced as a country. The first strategy is around education. We are saying school-based program. The school programs need to infuse the issues of alcohol prevention so that we start at an early stage. We don't come at a later stage, but right at the beginning of even grade 1 as part of the curriculum. The second thing around school-based program, we are also proposing that education needs to start developing policies that prohibits alcohol in their premises, so that we can protect young people from abusing substances. The second strategy is parental programs. It has come out very clear that parents need to be part and parcel of the solution. We as a department, we are tasked with the responsibility to work with families, to work with parents. We're therefore saying we need to strengthen the parental skills to make sure that parents, they are able to support their children as they go through different phases, and they're able to discuss these matters openly and be able to resolve them as a family. And as a Department of Social Development, we are going to upscale a number of parenting programs that we have in different communities and provinces. The third one is around family-based program. We are saying some families, some children, they are not raised by their parents per se, but they are raised by families. So it's very, very important that we support family. We do things around family strengthening, family preservation. Those are the programs that are out there. But I think what we need to do is to upscale them and make sure that each and every community, they've got access to these programs. Number 4, recreational facilities. It has also came out sharply, the issue of recreational facilities, to say we need these recreational facilities to keep our children away from streets, to protect them as well through this program. So Department of Sports, Arts and Culture, they are on board. They will be rolling out those programs. Number 5, the issue of availability of alcohol. I think my colleague has already alluded to that. We really need to work around really reducing the access to alcohol. There's too much availability of alcohol, and it becomes a challenge for young people to resist taking into consideration their age. So we are therefore saying the Department of Trade and Industry needs to really fast track the bill that my colleague was alluding to go to cabinet, so that some of these measures can be rolled out with immediate effect. The last one is community. We are saying this issue is happening in communities, and there's not much that we can do without communities. We need communities, and the issue of alcohol and drug abuse must become it must become everyone's business. It must not only be a government issue, but a societal problem that all of us must come together and agree that this is how we will be tackling this matter in order for our children to be safe. Thank you.
Siza, you've mentioned a number of steps, and I just want you to quickly give us clarity, if you can, in just a few sentences. I mean, some of the steps that you've mentioned, I think you've mentioned 6. You are essentially the thread that binds all of these departments, because like we said, it is a multi-stakeholder faceted solution. As a department, where have you failed? Like, what is the problem? Is it a lack of funding? Is it a lack of political will? Where do you see the difficulties in implementing some of these urgently needed interventions?
I think where we failed is it's us as a society failing to implement the National Drug Master Plan, because we do have that National Drug Master Plan, which is a country blueprint document that says to us, in order for us to really curb the alcohol abuse in the country, these are all the key role players that are needed to do the following things. But then again, I think because of maybe some of the partners or role players, they were not really recognizing this issue as an important issue that needs our attention. Hence, there was a tolerance to alcohol. But I think now we are saying we have lost too many lives for us to really say we will continue as we always do things. But we are saying we are going to do things differently, and the president has already committed the departments to say they need to move with speed. These are the actions that we will be employing to make sure that we get better results. We do, yes, accept that, we did not do what we are supposed to do collectively. However, what is important is us moving forward to say, are we going to deliver what we have promised now that we have seen what it has happened?
Bongi, I'd like to wrap the conversation with you. You spent a lot of time talking about the Liquor Amendment Bill. We know as a country, South Africa has some very good legal frameworks, that cover a plethora of things, particularly that speak to social ills, So given that we are looking for solutions, isn't that the place to start in terms of the Liquor Amendment Bill, which is outdated? What then would be the process to make sure that that is, fast-tracked, that, it goes into Parliament and it's approved, and we can start seeing at least people being held accountable for not adhering to some of those laws, some of those regulations that would be then, accommodated in that bill?
Indeed, Unathi, I just want to come back to the issue of government and the role that government should be playing. I think we have a problem of coordination across government departments. Siza from DSD spoke about the role that they play, also mentioned some government departments, but the reality is that there's very little coordination amongst government departments, and until we get to that point, government is unable to play a leadership role in the alcohol regulation discourse. DTI is currently mandated with the alcohol regulation responsibility. But the reality is that DTI has no competence in social issues, no competence in health issues. Their mandate is actually an economic one. So we need to start seeing departments like, DSD, as Siza mentioned, sports and culture and all the rest coming to the party, and we need a different leadership. In fact, we are calling for a task team that is housed within the presidency, located within the presidency, so that it's not a single ministry that is running with the issue of coordinating other government departments, but it's happening from within the presidency. But if I may come back to the issue you're talking about, the issue of the alcohol amendment, liquor amendment bill, and whether it is outdated. It is indeed not. I think we need to go back. We need to understand why it has stalled. We have our own suspicions about why it has stalled, and part of it is where the accountability is placed in that bill. That bill places accountability to the traders, because there's a liability clause in that bill that says, if you sell alcohol to anybody who should not be drinking alcohol, whether it's minors, whether it's pregnant women, you take responsibility, the distributors and the traders. So again, we're calling for that bill to be passed, because in that bill, it's very well thought out. It's a national, strategy, and it will help even in harmonizing some of the provincial bylaws, which, by the way, don't speak to what national is saying. So we have a problem of coordination within government departments, but we've got a lack of harmonization in our laws as well.
All right, I'd like to thank you both for coming onto the show. Really do appreciate your insights and, of course, some of those pertinent points that you are raising in terms of how we can start to see the scourge end in our country. That, of course, is Siza Magangoe, Chief Director of Families and Social Crime Prevention at the Department of Social Development, as well as Bongi Ndondo, the Board Chairperson of the Southern African Alcohol Policy Alliance.